you, but there's some I don't. So if I haven't met you, I'm Lainey, and if I met you when I was little, I'm sorry if I don't remember. One of the first things I remember about my Aunt Connie is that I didn't call her Aunt Connie. I knew she was my aunt, of course, but I always called her by her first name. Whether she disliked the formality or didn't have a preference, I remember thinking it was cool. It made me feel closer to her in a way. She called me her baby doll, which isn't a nickname anyone else gave me, so it felt like our special thing. Spending time in her house as a child was fun, mostly because her house was much bigger than the one my mom and I lived in. Connie's house had a basement, complete with different colored squares of olive green, orange, and brown carpet sewn together, a waterbed, and my favorite, a standing Schwinn exercise bike. I would spend hours riding that thing, sometimes just letting the pedals spin themselves to see just how fast they could go. Food was always a big deal with Connie. Every family gathering included delicious food, particularly Thanksgiving. Some signature dishes include oyster stuffing, deviled eggs, grandma's noodles on top of mashed potatoes, corn that every summer was specially cut from the cob and frozen in preparation for winter, chili with finely chopped beef, and black olives. Favorite desserts include the famous chocolate cake for birthdays, cheesecake, fudge, or warm chocolate pudding, and vanilla ice cream with strawberries. When she wasn't cooking at home, Connie loved eating all-you-can-eat buffets, particularly if crab and lobster were available, and always made sure to bring baggies to take some of it home. In the summers, my mom would drag me out of bed early in the morning to go to yard sales. I remember being so sleepy as we drove around. That combined with the chill of early summer mornings, it was the absolute last thing I wanted to wake up to. But my mom and Connie always found something, and it was always for a good price. The routine was similar for sales after Christmas, my mom and Connie each getting matching decorations or storage bins, ornaments, and wrapping paper. I learned that it was always worth it to go shopping to get a deal. That was the way we had to live, buying things on clearance, used, or deeply discounted. And no matter how much money I end up making, I will never be too good for a yard sale or a thrift store. Every time we went to hang out at Connie's, we would say goodbye in the living room. And then she would follow us outside and say goodbye about 5 more times. This rang true for phone calls too. I can't remember how many times I'd come out to use the bathroom after going to bed to find my mom and Connie still blabbing away on the phone hours after their conversation had started. We would sit in the car in her driveway for sometimes an additional hour or 2 after we had already said goodbye. My mom would eventually turn the car on, a little hint that maybe the next goodbye could be real. We'd pull away and we'd wave to her at her house on Mumford, the green and white striped mailbox framing her goodbye. She'd blow kisses and say, "I love you," and we'd shout, "I love you too." Connie was probably the only person on earth who knew my mom as well as I did. We didn't talk about her often, but when we did, it was in a way I couldn't with anyone else. While Connie had 2 other sisters, she and my mom had a unique connection because Connie raised her. Connie was the only real connection my mom, Shelley, ever had to their mom, Cleta Faye. This is part of the reason her loss is so painful. Connie was the last living woman connected to the matriarch of the family. She held the place for a grandma I never knew. Connie and I shared a love of pink and purple. Well, for her, the order was purple and pink. We both love a bold lipstick, anything sparkly, and both consider lilacs to be our favorite flower. Connie loved hearing me sing and was able to see me perform at Jester's a few times, most recently this past December in Scrooge. She may not have been completely in her body watching, but I know her spirit took it in. Connie always called me and said or sang happy birthday and encouraged me to get wild with my friends.
Happy birthday, Lainey Faye. I didn't forget about you, most definitely. I got your birthday card and 1 gift, and I got to get to the bank to get some money, so I didn't forget about you. So we'll touch base, but you have a great birthday and just get wild. I mean wild. You know what I mean? Okay. Love you, honey. Happy birthday, sweetheart. Connie.
She loved encouraging my young and carefree spirit. I only wish we had more time to share the joys of life with each other. Now, I wouldn't be telling the full story If I didn't mention that Connie loved hanging out in the garage, smoking a bowl, or 2, or 3, or 4, or 5. She was and always will be the queen of that particular activity. If you're here, you knew Connie, and you also know that it wasn't always easy breezy beautiful for her, or being around her for that matter. Without going into the details of the difficulties in her life or in my relationship with her, the core of it comes down to the fact that Connie deserved better. The murder of her mother at such a young age did not set her up for success. Neither did being a single mom with a low income. Connie needed support a long time ago, but she came of age at a time much less aware of the importance of taking care of mental, emotional, and physical health. I feel so blessed to have access to so much information about trauma-informed care, how impactful food is on all the processes in the body, and a network of family and friends that create a safe space for me to be vulnerable. Connie didn't have any of that. By the time things got worse, and ultimately culminated in dementia, the time for help had passed. And I'm ashamed to say this, but it really wasn't until that happened that I finally understood how all the roadblocks Connie had experienced had contributed to her, shall we say, feistiness. She had no choice but to be strong and bury her trauma until it festered and imploded. Connie didn't deserve the pain or loss she experienced. I wish so badly that she would have grown up in a world that had facilitated her healing. Connie did the best she could. She found happiness in the small things, the green things, and her distinct cackle was never too far from erupting from that lipstick mouth. The end of my relationship with Connie involved a very intimate physical handling of her. It wasn't long into her time in assisted living that her ability to walk declined. Forget getting in and out of the car by herself, particularly in her last month. I was usually the first to volunteer to assist her, although I wasn't the only one who did. I'd have her hold onto my shoulder while I lifted her leg into the car and guided her bottom to the seat. Then I helped her swing her other leg into the car and finally made sure she was facing straight and buckled her up. It came to a point where one person wasn't enough to help her, and it became too difficult to take her anywhere. To do that for her physically was very difficult, but it was an honor. It felt like a gift I could give to her to make sure she was safe. It felt like there was a level of trust that had never quite been there. And it was an act of love, a way of saying, I forgive you, I'm here for you, you're safe. Days before her last breath, Connie really wanted to stand up. She didn't understand why she couldn't, and on Monday of the week she died, she got all the way up from her wheelchair. It was pretty incredible, but I went over and held her armpits to ensure she wouldn't fall forward. It made us nervous to see her attempts at standing. She'd already fallen and was unable to be left alone, but I knew she needed to stand, and I wanted to help her do that. As far as I know, that was one of the last times she ever did. I'm fortunate to have only lost a few people in my life, one being my Uncle Mark, my grandparents, Ned and Vivian Collins, Ivan, and then of course Helen. For those of you that don't know her or how she died, she was one of my best friends growing up, and she took her own life at the age of 22, almost exactly 4 years ago. There are so many things left unsaid with Helen. The depth of grief at her loss was mind-blowing. Connie's death has been much different. We got to literally sit with her, or in my case, on her deathbed. We talked and sang and cried and held her. I genuinely feel like I got to say everything I needed to say. While it was painful to see her decline so quickly from her cancer diagnosis on January 17th, we all had a chance to say goodbye. My favorite day was when my mom, Taryn, Connie, and I took a drive through Boulder Canyon. It was one of those winter days that made you believe that winter can be beautiful. The snow-covered trees and gray sky set a hushed mood over the landscape. Connie audibly said, "This is fun," and it really was. That particular foursome always felt special to me because the pairing of us was like a mirror, each sister, each with their only child. We didn't get enough time together with the four of us, but that day made up for some of that. It was anxiety-inducing to see when Connie's last breath would come, but on the morning of February 11th, a beautiful, sunny, warm winter day, she took her last breath, and in the presence of her baby boy and her sissy, the kids she raised, the family members who span decades, hairstyles and clothes, birthdays, Christmases, pets, garage sessions, and feasts. They shared the kind of love you can only hope to have in this life, unconditional through the highs and lows, and infinite between this world and the next. I know your welcoming party in heaven far surpassed any party you had down here, and as much as I will miss you, I am relieved for you to be free from this life, to be in your true form, and just waiting for the rest of us to join you. We'll see you in the blink of an eye, Connie. I love you forever, my purple girl, most definitely for sure. If anyone else has anything they'd like to share, you're welcome to come up and do so.
I just want to